Hey there, it's Andrew Chasen again with Andrew Chasen Design, and I had said that I was going to take the planet that I made and show you how to really planetize it. Now, the current view that you're seeing is great if you want to print this out, maybe put a hex grid on top of it and use it for a game or publication or something. But what if you want to make it look like a planet? And so there are some steps that I've come up with over the years that will help you do that. The first thing you're going to want to do is kind of make your selection. And so we're just going to grab the circular or the elliptical marquee tool, and we're going to drag. Now hold down Alt and Shift when you drag, and it'll make a perfect circle. And in this way, you can decide what area you want to target. And maybe I feel that this area here is the most interesting. So now, even though we don't have our layers merged, we can do Control-Shift-C and copy this. Let's go ahead and make a new document. Let's go ahead and make it 11 by 17 like our original one. And the first thing we're going to want to do, hit D to make sure we're back to the black and white colors, and Alt Backspace to fill this with black. Then let's get a star field going on. So add some noise, set it to about 40 to 50%, and hit OK. Control-T is going to let you transform this selection. You can see these little black brackets around it here. But up here, type in 300, 300. We're going to make this bigger. And it looks pretty good. I might have gone through that a little too fast, so let me make sure I go back to that. When you go to, yes, make sure you apply the transformation. You can either click away from your selection or hit Enter. Noise, add noise. Make sure this is set to Gaussian and monochromatic. Okay, so we don't want to add new noise, but okay. Here we are, 100%, and like we did in the last tutorial, let's practice some non-destructive image editing. We're going to drive the blacks way down, and even the mid-ranges closer to the right, to where we get some tiny stars and some large stars going on. That looks pretty good for a star field that took little to no effort on our part. Let's go ahead and merge these. Now remember, we have our planet on the clipboard. So Control-V, there's our planet. That looks pretty good. The first thing we're going to want to do is make it planet looking, spherify it. And so let's hold Control-Click to select it and go to Distort and Spherize. And I guess it'll think about it for a second or two. And let's crank this up to 100%. Now, just for added measure, let's get it spherized just a little bit more. Blur, nope, distort, spherize, and let's give it, let's say, 25%. Okay. If things are looking a little muddy, then make sure you come to Sharpen, just hit Sharpen. You can do that a couple times, but you don't want to do it too much. In fact, just like in the last video, what we might do is make a copy, sharpen it, and tone that down. Make another copy, sharpen it, tone it down to 50%. Alright, just a subtle sharpening there. Okay, so now what's next is the meat of this effect. And what I like to do is Control-Click to get my selection, make sure I have it, and fill this, Control-Backspace, fill this with white. Alright, why are we filling this with white? Well, the white is going to allow us to affect this area, but we're going to click here on the fill and turn it down to 0. Now the white is still there, we're just not showing the white at all. We're going to click on blending options. And, well, I better pull this over here for you to see. The first thing we're going to want to do is define kind of our atmosphere color. And we're going to do that with an inner shadow. The second thing we have to do is decide where our light source is coming from. In the last tutorial, we kind of already decided that, and it's coming from this upper right area. We want to use that and not really fight it because we already have some shadows on our features. So here we go. Unclick Use Global Light, and let's just move that to about 44 degrees, the direction that our light's coming from. Remember, this is for our atmosphere, and if you increase the size on this, see how it's going to get darker? In fact, let's turn the opacity up. We don't want it to get dark. In fact, let's go in here and choose a color, and I'm going to choose kind of an obnoxious, like a sprayed ammonia green, just what I imagine would be horrible to breathe on this planet. And don't set it to multiply. Let's set it to screen. And automatically you can see that that's starting to look more atmosphere-like. We can increase it, increase the distance some, increase the choke on it, push the effect back a little more. And what we want to get is more of it on this edge than this edge here. This is where our shadows are going to go. And if this is too tight of an atmosphere for you, then we can play with that too. But I'm liking it. It's almost opaque on the very edge, implying that it's thick and, again, noxious. All right. So the effect is almost there. There's just a couple more steps, and they're going to be repeated like this. You click, Control-click and make your selection. Make a new layer. Fill it with white. Now we're going to do a shadows layer. So, again, we're going to turn to the fill opacity. You can do it in here, or you can do it over here. And if I didn't say so and you're confused, you can right-click on these to bring up the blending options. Let's turn the fill opacity down to nothing. To imply shadow, let's turn on a gradient overlay. And we're going to want to set it to about 44 degrees for our angle. And we can even play with the scale some. Set this to overlay. See how much darker that made the dark spots, and it made the brighter area around here brighter. In fact, we can tone that down some if need be. You know what? And in fact, you don't need to put each of these effects on a separate layer. Sometimes it helps you tone them down too. So let's put in another, I believe we're going to do inner shadow. And unclick Use Global Light. And we want to make this the opposite of our light. So about here, about 134 degrees. It's okay for this to be multiply, but instead of just black, let's do the opposite color of whatever our atmosphere is on the color wheel. Let's go ahead and bring up a color wheel real quick. So one thing that I learned a couple years ago was that shadows subtly like to take on the inverse color from the light that's shining on them. And you can pull off some pretty neat effects with this. So I'm pulling up a color wheel over here on my other monitor. Let's drag it in. All right. So our noxious atmosphere is somewhere between green and yellow, or lime green and yellow, rather. So let's kind of skirt this line and make a dark purple magenta for our shadows. And here we go. So for hue, yeah, purple, magenta, but we do want it to be dark. And hit OK. Make the opacity 100%. And let's drive up the size of it. See? Let me move this out of the way. Just know that over on my other monitor, I'm going to be playing with the distance, the choke, and the size. And watch how this goes. It's already looking pretty planet-like. You can play with the size to feather the gradient more. There's the choke. It's looking good. One thing that we don't want to do, and this is why we do these on separate layers, our shadows are sitting on top of our atmosphere, and that's not what we want. So let's drag this layer underneath this layer. Automatically, that looks pretty darn good. So we're almost there. Let's make one more of these. Well, in fact, we don't even need to. I'm pretty sure we can get this effect by utilizing this layer, and thus keep our layers down and not confuse you more. So here's our atmosphere layer. And again, I'm horrible about this. Atmosphere. If I was good, shading, I would have named these earlier. So do that to keep your sanity. Shading, atmosphere. So on the atmosphere, we have this kind of inner glow going on, or inner, technically it's called an inner shadow, but we've inversed it. Shadows were normally set to multiply. We've set this to screen. Let's get the same going on our outer edge. Pick about the same color. We want these two effects to blend well. And see, this is implying kind of an outer glow there from behind the planet. We can clamp it down. And it's important that on the back side here we get this edge. Let's turn it up some. I think that's looking good. That's looking pretty neat. Alright, so the next bit I haven't practiced, and it takes some, well, it takes some of your own imagination anyway, just playing with it, seeing how it goes. But the next thing we're going to do is make a new layer and come up to filter and do clouds. Alright, in fact, we can even try this. Try difference clouds. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Let's hit Control-I to invert this. Yeah, that's looking like some gnarly lightning. In fact, let's put levels on this and clamp down the black. Look at that. Alright, I'm digging that. And for just a quick second, set it to... Nope. For just a quick... Well, okay, so we wanna associate this layer with this layer. The levels with kind of this cloud lightning layer that we made. There. So now it won't affect anything underneath it. And let's set the cloud lightning to screen. We just want to get a quick idea of how this is going to look. And something else I'm going to do. Let's disassociate this. I want to blur this. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. It's a little too much. It's not doing what I thought it might. Alright, well, we just won't do that. You know what we can do, though, is just add another, let's do render clouds. I see why it's doing that. I left the levels on. Don't leave the levels on. Render clouds. Okay. And adjustments. Let's add another levels. Let's let this be our cloud layer. Drag it up. Push the black back. Because one of the cool phenomenon I've seen is that volcanic planets tend to have lightning going on inside. No. Volcanoes, when they billow, tend to have lightning inside the smoke. Yeah, that makes more sense. So, now let's merge this levels and the level layer. For our own sanity, let's just call this clouds. Clouds. And we're going to call this cloud. We'll just call it light. Lightning. levels again and marry these two together. And now I want to hit screen on top of this. Let's get this colored. In fact, let's clamp this back even more. Let's clamp it to just the lightning if possible. There we go. I really am just playing around at this point, but we're going to build the clouds that are going to go over our planet. So, here we go. We're going to do a gradient mask. Or even better yet, let's just grab kind of this electric blue and throw it on top. That was all backspace. And hit color. That doesn't look bad. It does look like lightning. We might even throw this whole effect out if it doesn't suit our purposes. So, now, here, let's put a layer mask on top of this, hit Control, and select one of your round layers that we know that the planet is occupying. Click for the mask. Alright, unlink these, and now we can scale and move this effect around. Some. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's clamp it. This layer, we just want to affect the blacks. There we go. Look at that. Okay. And can we get a color overlay going on? It doesn't look like it. Not yet. So let's click up here to make a new layer, select these, and Control E to marry them. And also click on a round layer to make a selection. Here, to make this really gel with your planet, you need to spherify your clouds too. So let's do that. Distort, spherize, and let's do that 100%. There we go. And you can even spin this around to get it right where you want it. Maybe this looks okay. Another thing we probably want to do is grab kind of our atmosphere color that's going on here. Hit Alt, Backspace, and then holding Alt and clicking between the layers, marry them together. Alright, but that's not green enough for me. It's a little too yellow. So let's push this over to the green and Alt Backspace again. That's looking nice. Let's be sure to set this on color, and now we're getting a really vibrant green atmosphere going on. Also, again, pretty noxious. The last thing we can do is go to our blending options and hit drop shadow, I believe. Yeah, here we go. Again, unclick global light and set this to about 44 and increase the distance on it. And now it looks like your shadows or your clouds are casting shadows on your planet. If this is too much for you, if you want to see more of your planet, you can dial this back. For our own sanity, let's put this in a group. Oh, well, hold on a second. We haven't even played with the lightning effect that we made yet. So, again, hold Control when you click on the atmosphere. Make a circular selection. There we go. Now, clamp this back as well. This layer. Hold on to split these. That could be neat looking. And let's give it an... no, I can't do that yet. Alright, so there we go. That looks Okay. We're going to marry those together. Give it its own mask. And put an outer glow on it as well. Of kind of an electric blue to make it just more electric. A couple things are out of order. So let's go back to our horrible chemical color that's coloring our clouds. See here. And group that. And with our lightning, let's see what it looks like below our clouds. I was afraid of this. The effect is kind of cheesy. So we're just going to get rid of it. The other thing that we're not doing, remember, we have our atmosphere and our shading, but now we've put our clouds above that, and we're actually occluding our atmosphere. So let's take our clouds down below our atmosphere, and it blends very well. Now, at this point, it's very planet-looking, but we've also hidden some of the wonderfulness of our planet. So again, we can come in here and drop the opacity down. In fact, the other thing that we might want to do, because it didn't dawn on me, we have these clouds on the far side of the planet are too bright. So make sure, and I'm sorry that I skipped this, make sure that your clouds are down there. Yeah, that's much better. Make sure that your clouds are below your shading layer and your atmosphere layer. Okay, so we're pretty much done. I'm liking the way that this is looking. We can always come back in here and noodle with the opacity more, turn it up. In fact, that looks pretty good. If you really want to, you can come on here and manually paint in some glowing highlights for the, wow, that's much too harsh. Let's turn the opacity down. You could paint in some glowing bits where it's the most orange, because this ball of fire is emitting, set that to screen, emitting its own glow. The issue you run into, though, is for this effect to be believable. This is a good tutorial for any other planet. I really shouldn't have done a lava planet, because now what do we got to do? We have a lot of lava, and it's on the shadows here. We can come into this whole layer, this whole shading layer, and give it a mask, and then with some black, make sure you're painting with black, knock it down some. You know what, at this point, I bet that you all don't think that I don't even know what I'm talking about, because that didn't work at all. And half of playing, air quotes, playing, in Photoshop is experimentation. So what can we do to knock this up more? Let's go to blending options and try this. If the underlying layer is bright, then let's take this down some. It's not really working out either. Well, we could just leave it as is. That is a little bit of a cop-out, though. I'll give you that much. What else can we do to highlight the awesomeness of our planet? Maybe our cloud placement is wrong. It's a little better. To do this, I just hit Control-T, and then I'm grabbing the outer edges until they turn like this. The outer corners, rather, until they turn into like this little rounded icon, and just turning it. It would look really neat if it was animated. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's drop the opacity a little bit more. And let's look at our atmosphere. Our atmosphere effect is pretty strong. We can knock it back some too, just by messing with the opacity. And again, I like 66%. So it's not bad looking. One of the things that I've learned in Photoshop along the years is things look even better when they're smaller. I tend to work at about 400% of the final size that I'm going to be doing. So if you want to, we can select all these layers and merge them. Control E. Now, composition is important for any piece. Let's shrink this some. And put it over here. This would be good if maybe you had something that you wanted to highlight. The rule of thirds is really important in composition. Real quick, that's if we were to cut imaginary lines in our stuff. So here we've cut things into thirds, and here we've cut things into thirds again. And that says that things want to kind of exist in these quadrants here. And we almost are doing that. So we can put a planet here. And if you've got the artwork for it, clip art, something else that you've cut out or maybe made in 3D, you could put a ship here. So really kind of drawing the eye to both locations. What would I do differently? I think that yellow is just a little too bright. Again, all of this is playing with it. The technique isn't different, and while you guys might not be totally stoked about the outcome this time, the steps are the same. So, yeah, here's the lava planet. I hope you like this. There are some stars. If you want to really, play with this some more, we can come in here and do some nebula just by picking two wild colors and doing clouds. We can even do difference clouds. And why don't we invert this and do difference clouds again, and invert it, and difference clouds again. Okay, that's looking wild. And just do screen. So that's looking pretty nice. You can even knock it back some to make it subtle. Not looking bad. So these techniques are how I did all of the planets in my in the map I made for Nova Praxis for Voidstar Games. It's just I took more time, a little more TLC. All of these were either hand-painted or hand-generated using the techniques I've shown you in the past two tutorials. We can zoom in on these and see some of them. Same kind of stuff. It's just I took more time because I didn't want to waste your time this time, so I went a little bit fast. And, yeah, got this down to 30 minutes instead of maybe taking a whole hour on one of these and getting it just right. The techniques are the same, just put a little more TLC into it than I did this time around. Anyway, I hope that you've learned something, that you like these, and that I'm not just wasting your time and mine. So, if you like it, well, if you liked the tutorial, then by all means, please like it. Otherwise, well, in addition to, you can always subscribe. I hope to churn out at least a tutorial a week, and let me know what kind of stuff you guys would like to see. It's not just going to all be art related. I can do tutorials on some other things too, some things that I do in my day job. Anyway, I'm Incomitatum. Thank you for your time, and well, I hope that you have a wonderful time making art. Goodbye for now.